You can't fix what you won't face. You can't experience clarity while living in denial. You must confront the real issue. I had trained for the moment, but not for the maintenance. I had prepared for the win, but not for the week after the win. Every artist, entrepreneur, athlete we admire wasn't discovered, they were developed. And the antidote to fatigue isn't motivation, it's meaning. Everyone saw the before and the after, but nobody saw the middle, the part where I was still trying to figure it out. Look, I went on The Biggest Loser with my plans of riding roller coasters. I make that very clear. I knew that by doing this, I was going to be setting myself up to be in a position where I could go speak all over the place. And I went on the show with the plan to build a career off of this. Dare I say, it was a launch pad. But after the camera stopped rolling, I came home to the same house. I came home to the same thoughts, the same habits. And within months, I started gaining the weight back. And I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things that someone had told me before this was whenever I looked in the mirror, I was still going to see the old me. Like, seriously, I had lost 136 pounds on the show, but whenever I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that. I saw the Mike that went on the show, the Mike that needed to go on the show. And one of the things that I have to say is that even a little bit after the elimination, it didn't really set in until I started reconnecting with different things. Look, I make no argument about it. I was a contractor before I went on The Biggest Loser, and I went back to contract life. My wife was still unemployed. She had lost her job right before we went on the show. We had a newborn baby that was growing like a weed. And I have to say that life was lifing. And I had trained for the moment, but not for the maintenance. I had prepared for the win, but not for the week after the win. And one of the things that became very clear was I didn't take advantage of what I had access to because I was always thinking about the next and not the now. Like, seriously, I would find myself doing our walks at night, talking about what I was going to do after the show and how I was going to set this thing up, set that thing up. I even went back and looked at my journal and saw that while I was documenting what I was going through, I also was laying out plans for the beginning of the new part of my life. One of the things that became clear to me several years, I will be honest, was that you don't need to be on TV to know what that feels like. Maybe your version of the stage is a job promotion. It could be the big event, whatever that big event is. It could be the marriage or the relationship. It could be the applause from people who don't see what happens after the show. And it took me years to learn that breakthrough isn't found in the mountaintop moment. It's buried in the rhythm of the daily routine. Uh, the world loves what we like to call a highlight reel. Think about it. Whenever we watch TV, we see the highlight reel. Some people that can't make a sporting event. When you catch your favorite team, you're not able to catch them live. And so instead of just watching the whole game in replay, what you'll do is you'll catch it when it's broadcast on one of the networks or even on YouTube or something like that. And we like that. We see the after photos, but we don't see the 4:30 a.m. mornings when nobody's cheering, the dodging of the bill collectors, the silent suffering. I talk about how the one-click mindset took several years to write. And the reason being was I had gone into Biggest Loser with my plans of writing the book and it was on the way. Like I had gained so many followers, like people had invested in it. Close to $6,000 was raised on one of the crowdsourcing platforms to write this book. People that didn't even know me, they just saw my show, or people that did know me and just believed in what I was about. And it became very clear within about a year and a half that I wasn't going to be able to get this book done because I hadn't gotten clarity. I hadn't got the release to write it yet. Like I had writer's block. And one of my friends, one of my very good friends, Justin, he's actually one of the people that I call one of my custom buddies. He pulled me aside about 4 or 5 years ago. And he always asking me about the book, always asking, Mike, when you gonna get it done? When you gonna get it done? I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. And finally, there was one point where I said, Justin, I don't know if I can get it done. And he said, Mike, you are talking about the fact that you gained your weight back. And I know that's a letdown, but people don't really want that book because what are the chances are that a person is going to get a chance of a lifetime to go on this international TV show and lose weight? Nobody's going to get that. But what they will have experience with is seeing how, you know what? They have to live in the messiness of it. You have to still live life. Life is life and life is doing what it does. And that's what they really want to see. And one of the things that I realize is that a lot of times in our culture, in our society, we call it overnight success. But the thing about it is, we don't get to see the nights before it happened. I was talking to a buddy of mine and I was talking about our phones and how we see all the beautiful things on social media. But I guarantee that you can go into that same phone and look in the photos and see probably close to 20 or so of the same or similar shots, but that's not the one that made the cut. And that's the part we don't see. Every artist, entrepreneur, athlete we admire wasn't discovered, they were developed. You know, I think about this and we talk about the fact that Jesus started his ministry at 33 years. The human side of Jesus actually needed preparation to do what it was that he had to do. So there is nothing wrong with having to take the time in the incubator to do it. So the question isn't when will I have my big moment? The question is, am I being faithful in the little moments? Because it's the little moments that actually add up. According to the European Journal of Social Psychology, there was a study that kind of debunked the whole 21 days to form a habit. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I remember a long time ago hearing the idea that you have 21 days, you can form a new habit. And what we found, though, was in a study back in 2010 that it takes on average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. And in his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear gives his takeaway. Habits form based frequency, not time. Meaning, it's not about how many days you do something, but how often you repeat it with intention. It's not about how many days you do something, but how often you repeat it with intention. Here's the thing I want you to think about. If you were to plant a seed today, and while I'm sure you want to see it bloom into a beautiful flower, you don't check it tomorrow with the expectation that it's going to be a flower. No. What you do, though, is you keep watering it. I hope that helps somebody where you're at right now, because that thing just helped me as I was saying it. So, why do you expect this life-changing event in your life to just happen overnight? Just because you see that on TV, that on social media, that's not how it works. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. According to Gallup's 2013 State of the American Workplace Report, listen to this. Over 70% of Americans say they're disengaged at work. And that's not because they don't care. It's because they've disconnected what they do from why they do it. Now, you may say, Dr. Mike, that was 2013. 10 years later, Gallup did a similar report, and they found that the needle only moves slightly. Matter of fact, one of the things they said was that engagement improved slightly post-pandemic, but not by that much. And so I want you to think about this, men. You go to work, you pay your bills, you check the boxes, you show up for everyone else, but you can't remember when you showed up for yourself. We go through the motions, y'all. We're working, we're parenting, we're serving, but somewhere along the line, we stop connecting our routine to our reason. That's not failure. That's fatigue. And the antidote to fatigue isn't motivation. It's meaning. When I started rebuilding my life, I realized that transformation happens one click at a time. Small, intentional shifts that compound over time. The first step in the click formula is clarity. Clarity is knowing what you're really chasing. So one of the things I want to make sure I'm clear on is that most men don't lack discipline. They lack direction. A lot of times, I know being a man myself, we often beat ourselves up for not being consistent. And when the real issue isn't laziness, it's aimlessness. You can't be disciplined about something you haven't defined. A man says, I just need to be more disciplined about going to the gym. But Ask him why he wants to go, and you get a little bit of the answer. Watch this. If it's just about having better abs, so I want to be approved by other things, guess what? That motivation is going to fade. But if it's about longevity, it's about leadership, it's about stewardship of their body, now that creates direction. Now it's tied to something. There's skin in the game. Discipline needs a destination. And when you don't know what you're running toward, even good effort feels like exhaustion. And here's the bigger piece to it. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't experience clarity while living in denial. You must confront the real issue. Is it pride? Is it fear? Is it pain? Is it avoidance? And a lot of times what happens is it shows up in things like imposter syndrome. It shows up in what we call self-sabotage, right? And eventually what you have to do is you have to own it. But that's the conversation for another day. The key here, though, is recognizing that we have to start clarity with honesty, right? What do I want? So when you're asking the question of what do I want, you got to be specific. What is it that I want? Do you want to have that position? Do you want to have that career? Do you want to have that relationship? Do you want to be able to fit in clothes that are a little smaller than what you're wearing? Do you want to be able to just go to a store and be able to fit in clothes? Look, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Where the rubber met the road for me was I like to travel, and I travel a lot for the work that I do. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I couldn't be fully excited about traveling because it meant I had to pack. And you may be saying, Mike, what's wrong with you? The packing was I always had to make sure I had more than I really needed, which actually caused some issues, right? Like, for instance, it meant that I had to check a bag as opposed to just doing a carry-on, right? So I had to plan around that. Why? Because I was worried that if by chance I had a situation, for instance, a wardrobe malfunction, or I found out that I actually forgot to pack something, I wouldn't be able to go to a store to get it. Whereas regular people, you can go and you could probably find something at Walmart for real cheap and just cover it for that event. And it's nothing major. For me, it was an ordeal. And it came to a point where I actually had to put that on my list of one of the reasons why I want to experience a transformation in my weight and a transformation in my appearance and my health was simply because if I'm going to travel, I need to be able to be in a position where if I have an issue, I can get something quick. And that sounds crazy, but I promise you, when you start putting a tag on those things, they all of a sudden make some more sense to you. So what is it that you want? Now, here's the second thing. Why do you want it? You got to know the motivation behind it. That goes back to what I was saying. I want it because I want to be in a position that if I find myself in trouble, I'll be able to get something, right? I want to be in a position where I don't have to worry about having someone sit next to me on the plane and both of us being uncomfortable. I don't want to be in a position where I have to do a lot of moving around for different airports and all of a sudden I'm winded and heaven forbid the flight is behind and I have to run to the gate. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are things that I had to start thinking about, and that was becoming the motivation. And let's keep it real. If you don't have any skin in the game, if you don't get anything from it, then why are you going to do it? In learning and development, talent development, training and development, that sort of thing, one of the things that we talk about is something called the WIFM, WIIFM, WIFM. And this is what it stands for. What's in it for me? Seriously. So when you're thinking about your clarity, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this, right? What do I get from this? What is the benefit that comes along with doing this work? And then here's the last thing about that clarity. What's blocking me? What is it that's getting in the way? One of the things I have found in life is a lot of times we hit these, what I like to call momentum killers, right? These are the things that get in the way. These are the obstacles that get in the way for what it is that we're trying to do. And more often than not, what happens when we're trying to achieve our expectations, we hit these obstacles, and depending on how far in, we actually may abort the whole mission. Like, seriously, think about it. How many times did you set out to do something, and because all of a sudden you hit this roadblock, you just said, you know what? I'm just not going to do it again. Biggest Loser, season 14 was the season I was on. not many people know, though, that I came really close to being on season 13. That was the season before. And the process with Biggest Loser is that you have these things called the casting calls, and then you have a callback for the casting call. Sometimes I think back in the day, they used to call that being on the casting couch. And it really is that you meet up in a hotel suite with the producers, the casting producers that are in the town that you're in, and they sit with a camera and they just ask you questions and you are answering the questions. And what's actually going on is they're making aspects of your video reel. And then along the way, there's just different things that you have to do. And so slowly but surely, I was like uncovering things about what made me get to the big man that I was at that point. And it got to the point where we were waiting for the call to see if we were going to make it to what was the next step, which was casting finals, where they actually flew you to LA. And from there, you actually went to the ranch and waiting for the call. And right when the call was supposed to come, I got it. And it said, nope, didn't make it. So the next season, I wasn't going to apply, y'all. Seriously, I wasn't going to apply. Why? Because they had done all this work to uncover all this stuff. And I didn't want to go through that again. And a lot of times, let's keep it real. When life gets to really lifing, I didn't put all this work in. And now it doesn't give me the benefit that I was hoping to get. Guess what? I'm not going to do it again. And that's where you have to think about it. And why this is important to have this conversation now is because if I can go in prepared, knowing that I'm going to hit these obstacles, I potentially could hit them, then I can also go in with a plan for what happens if, right? What happens if? And so you want to make sure that you define your expectations, because if you don't, your distractions will. So to that point, let's talk about it. Action is obedience in motion. Action is obedience in motion. You can pray for direction, but at some point, you've got to move your feet, my friends. Look, we always quote this scripture. We say faith without works is what? Dead. And yes, God is going to do his thing, but you have to actually do your part too. One of the things I love to tell people whenever I'm doing training is, I said, you cannot expect the results if you don't play 100%. And more often than not, people get it. They're like, what you're saying is that I can't say it's going to work if I haven't put it in. And that's exactly right. It's like this. You go get a car, right? You get a car, you get a warranty on the car, and something goes wrong with the car. And they say to you, you know what? Yep, you're going to have to get a new engine, and it's going to cost you a few $1,000s. You're like, whoa, I have a warranty. Yes, you do have a warranty, but you didn't go get the oil change like you were supposed to. You didn't get regular maintenance like you were supposed to. So therefore, it voids the warranty. Come on, y'all. I want you to think about this. You expect this life-changing thing to happen in your life, but you didn't do your part to do it. What kind of sense does that make? You're sitting here grinding your gears, trying to do all this stuff, but guess what? You haven't done the work. You haven't done the work. I remember premarital counseling right before my wife and I got married. And Bishop Johnson, who forwarded the book, he asked us, outside of Jesus Christ, what is the most important element in a marriage? So we gave him all the right answers. And guess what the answer was? Commitment. Commitment. Because we came up with communication and love. And he was like, yeah, but if you don't have the commitment, there's only but so much that love's going to do for you. There are times where I know my wife looks at me and she like, what in the world did I do? But she still stays with me. Why? Because she's committed. Here's the thing. You want this thing to happen. Yes, God has called you to this thing. God has set you up for this thing. You have to remain committed to it. Because I can't want it more than you want it. And you can't expect a breakthrough and a transformation if you don't put the actions in, right? So here's the thing. Maybe that means you got to get up extra 10 minutes earlier, right? Maybe that means that what you have to do is you have to take the shower before you go to bed. So that way you can just get up and roll out the bed. I don't know. Like maybe what you need to do is you need to put your Bible on top of your laptop. So that way, before you can go check in your email, you have to look at your Bible. Whatever it is, you have to put things in motion so that you can actually do what it is that you're supposed to do. And so with that then comes the momentum, right? Momentum is consistency multiplied by time. Um, what happens eventually is that the momentum starts happening. Remember those 66 days that we talk about building those habits? Well, what happens is eventually you get the momentum, you get into the rhythm, right? And all of a sudden you start having these moments where you're just doing it. You ever was driving home and you got so caught up in your thoughts that you don't even realize that you got home? You're like, I don't even know how I got home. Like somebody said, did you see that accident on the side of the road? Did you see the deer? No, I didn't see any of that. Why? Because I was so focused on what I was doing. By the way, I don't recommend you like drive home from work aimlessly, not paying attention to your surroundings. I want to make sure I say that. If you're listening to this or watch, you shouldn't be watching it while you're driving, but if you're listening to this, make sure you're paying attention. But the point I want to make sure you get is there comes a point where all of a sudden it just starts becoming a habit. When you start stacking those small wins, what happens is you start creating what we call emotional energy, and emotional energy fuels endurance. It's that momentum that's going to carry you through when motivation dies. It's look, I'm already in it. It's one of those things that you get to the point where, like, you know what? I'm already doing this. I'm getting there. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and keep on going. Why? Because I got the momentum. I'm in the habit. Like I already have the time planned out. One of the things that I learned, and I learned this from a mentor of mine, was I actually had to schedule self-care moments in a day where I just like schedule 30 minutes just to make sure that I'm intentional about getting up to take a break, right? Get up and grab some water. Like I actually had to schedule that into my calendar, because sometimes what happens is when you don't schedule it into your calendar and you let other things fill it up, then what happens is it ends up overtaking it, and before long you'd have missed out. That's one of the reasons why, and this may help you a little bit, when I'm working with managers, one of the things I tell managers a lot of times is make sure you put all of your one-on-one meetings and your team meetings, like you put all those on a calendar ahead of time. And yes, you may have moments when you're not going to be able to meet like you want to, but at least make yourself do it for 5 minutes, because the minute you get in the habit of canceling the meeting, what happens is it starts subconsciously giving you the permission that you did it once, nothing happened. So guess what? Then all of a sudden, what you find is you're 6 months down the road and you're back where you started. I was thinking about how growing up, we talked about gateway drugs, right? And this is not, I promise you, this is not a DARE campaign. That's how old I am. DARE and McGruff, the crime dog. But one of the things that you talked about was like there were certain things that actually became gateway drugs. It was like they make it so that when it comes time for you to get to the heavier stuff, that's what it is. And a lot of times, not making time for things is a gateway drug, right? And so what you have to do is you have to make sure you're being a very good steward of your momentum, right? You got to be a very good steward of your momentum. And to that point, Luke 16:10, he who is faithful in the little will be made ruler over much. God doesn't promote what you won't steward. You got to take care of it. And one of the things that I have learned in my 40 something years of life is you have to be a good steward of the things that you get. So that way you can be trusted with bigger things. I remember growing up, there were certain things that my parents would give me, and what they were, where they would test to see how I would handle the bigger thing. Because ultimately, most kids, we dream of that day when we have the keys to the car, right? Now, we dream of the day when we have the keys to our own car, but we will settle for mom and dad's car. And one of the things that I used to recognize was that from time to time, there would be things that I didn't take as good care of. And my dad would actually say things like, you can't even take care of this, and you want us to give you the keys to the car? Wasn't until I got a little older that I really realized what that means. And now that I have a teenager, I'm wondering about that. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm testing, trying to see how does he handle little things like the iPhone and the laptop, because those things are pennies on a dollar compared to the multi-$1,000 weapon that's sitting outside the house. And so one of the things you have to recognize is that God doesn't promote what you won't steward. And here's the other piece of that: breakthrough isn't blocked, but it's waiting for your faithfulness. I always say this prayer. I say, Lord, you can trust me with the winnings of the Mega Millions. Now, I will be honest with you, I do not go out and buy those tickets, but when they have the Blockbuster, every now and again, I've been known to buy a little ticket just in case. And one of the things that I always joke with the Lord, but in all seriousness, don't pray for big results if you're ignoring small responsibilities. And some of you right now want a big platform, but God's still training you in the process, right? Maybe your miracle isn't coming to your stage, it's coming to your schedule. And the same God who can part a Red Sea can meet you in a quiet routine if you'll show up. Like, seriously, like when you really think about it, I'm not sure where you are religiously, but when you start thinking about the things that you read in the Bible, about the miracles that happened during the biblical times, that same God that did all those things is the same God that can do what he can do. And I'm a firm believer that when he has placed a calling on your life, he's got a provision for you to do it. But the key is you have to do what you need to do on your part to be able to take it. So one of the things I love to make sure I say as we're getting done with our time is that your breakthrough isn't in the big, it's in the beginning. Small wins create big waves. And so the one click takeaway I want you to take this week is picking one keystone habit and commit to it for the next 7 days. All right. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's you're going to spend 5 minutes in prayer before checking your phone. Maybe it's you're going to go on a 10-minute walk without music or distraction. Maybe it's going to be writing down one win every night before you go to bed. This isn't about doing everything, but it's about doing one thing consistently. So what I want you to do is I want you to tag me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm basically Dr. Mike Dorsey. And I want you to tell me your one click. And let's celebrate those small wins together. The miracle isn't in the motion, it's in the maintenance. Because when you master your daily routine, you're telling heaven, I'm ready for more. Let's click in.